points from Caitlin Clark.
Tiger Woods was absolutely shocked when he saw Caitlin Clark break a Guinness World Record. This event that usually draws in crowds from around the city.
Thanks for doing that, Michael.
Yeah, no problem, and good
The
luck.
sun is barely up over Sea Island, Georgia. Pros are warming up. Amateurs are nervous. Everything is as it should be. And then she walks onto the first tee. Caitlin Clark, basketball phenom, WNBA sensation. The woman who sold out arenas, broke viewership records, and made an entire generation care about women's college basketball. But here's the thing. She's not holding a basketball. She's holding a driver. And what happens next? It doesn't just break a Guinness record. It shatters our understanding of what female athletes are capable of. Let's rewind for a second. The RSM Classic Pro-Am. Ever heard of it? If you're being honest, probably not. It's a respectable PGA Tour event, sure, but it's not the Masters. It's not the US Open. It's the kind of tournament where pros show up, play solid golf, and the sports world collectively shrugs. That was supposed to be the story this year too. Wednesday morning, Pro-Am format. Professionals paired with amateurs and celebrities. Standard stuff. Ticket sales were modest, television coverage, minimal, a few cameras, a handful of dedicated fans, the usual suspects. But then the announcement dropped. Caitlin Clark was playing, and everything, and I mean everything, changed. Now, celebrity pro-ams aren't new. We've seen actors, musicians, retired athletes take their swing. Usually it's for show and just a publicity stunt. But Caitlin Clark isn't just any celebrity. She's the woman who averaged over 30 points per game in college, who drew larger crowds than most NBA teams, who signed NIL deals that made her one of the highest-paid athletes in collegiate history before she even touched a WNBA court. She doesn't just show up, she transforms. Within 48 hours of the announcement, something unprecedented happened. Ticket sales didn't just increase, they exploded. We're talking a 1,200% surge. 1,200%. Let that sink in for a second. An event that was going to have maybe a few thousand spectators suddenly sold out. The RSM Classic had to open additional viewing areas. They brought in extra security. Television networks that had planned minimal coverage scrambled to add production trucks, cameras, commentators. Why? Because people wanted to see if the magic translated. They paired her with a top world golfer, not some mid-tier pro doing a favor. A legitimate competitor, someone who could witness up close whether this was going to be a publicity stunt or something else. And then there was another guest. Unscheduled, unannounced. Tiger Woods showed up to watch. Here's where the story gets interesting. Most celebrities at these pro-ams, they're nervous, shaky, they joke about their handicap, laugh off bad shots, just try to survive the embarrassment of playing in front of cameras and crowds. Caitlin Clark walked to the first tee like it owed her money. The same laser focus that made her a basketball legend was now directed at a tiny white ball sitting on a wooden peg. The crowd went silent. Cameras zoomed in, and somewhere in that crowd, Tiger Woods leaned forward. She addressed the ball. Smooth setup, balanced stance. Then she swung. The ball launched. Not a tentative amateur shot, not a good-for-a-basketball player drive. A legitimate, pure, powerful golf shot. 270 yards. Let me put that in perspective. The average male amateur golfer drives maybe 220 yards. Many recreational players would kill for a 270-yard drive. And here's Caitlin Clark, a professional basketball player, launching it like she'd been playing competitive golf for years. The crowd erupted. But did you see Tiger's reaction? That eyebrow? That slight nod? That's not polite applause for a celebrity. That's recognition. Respect. The look of someone who knows elite athleticism when they see it. Because Tiger Woods has seen thousands of golf swings. He's played with the best in the world. And in that moment, watching Caitlin Clark's first drive, he knew. This wasn't a publicity stunt. Now, one good drive? That could be luck. A fluke. Everyone gets lucky once. But hole after hole, Caitlin Clark kept delivering. Fairways, greens, approach shots that made seasoned golfers do double takes. She wasn't just keeping up, she was competing. Actually competing. And then came hole 7, a difficult par 4. The kind of hole that punishes mistakes and rarely rewards amateurs. The kind of hole where Pro-Am participants are happy just to finish without embarrassment. Caitlin Clark stepped up. Her tee shot split the fairway. Perfect position. Her approach shot? It landed inches from the cup. Inches. The roar from the gallery wasn't polite appreciation. It was genuine shock. Professional golfers spend their entire lives trying to stick approach shots that close. And here's someone who just plays 1BA, nearly holing out from over 150 yards. She tapped in for birdie. When the final scores were tallied, Caitlin Clark finished at 13 under par. 13 under par. That's not just good. That's not just impressive for a non-golfer. That's a Guinness World Record for a Pro-Am event. She didn't just play well. She rewrote the record books. After the round, Tiger Woods did something he rarely does. He gave an interview specifically about another athlete's performance. His words were simple, direct. But if you know Tiger, you know he doesn't waste words on empty flattery. It reminded me of when I first broke through. Confidence, precision, and no fear. Read that again. Tiger Woods, arguably the greatest golfer who ever lived, compared Caitlin Clark's performance to his own breakthrough moments. Not good for a basketball player, not impressive considering. Confidence, precision, no fear. The three elements that separate good athletes from legends. Think about what that means. Tiger revolutionized golf. He brought athleticism, mental toughness, and killer instinct to a sport that had never seen anything like it. He dominated in ways that seemed impossible, and when he watches Caitlin Clark play golf for what might be one of her first major public rounds, remember those ticket sales that jumped 1,200%? That was just the beginning. Within 48 hours of her record-breaking performance, Caitlin Clark reportedly signed sponsorship deals worth over $15 million in 2 days. Companies that had never considered golf sponsorships were suddenly fighting for association with this moment. Why? Because Caitlin Clark didn't just break a record, she broke a narrative. The narrative that athletes are confined to their sport. The narrative that women's sports can't drive massive commercial interest. The narrative that crossover appeal is limited to men. Major corporations watched a basketball player draw more attention to a golf tournament than most tournaments get during their actual competition rounds. They saw demographic crossover. Young fans, women, basketball enthusiasts suddenly interested in golf, and they opened their checkbooks. But the money is just a symptom. The real story is what happened.
I understand it's a big city, but it doesn't really feel that way to me. Like, it's a very close-knit group, like everybody supports one another, but then you have the professional sports teams, and that's why
When you shatter everyone's expectations so completely that people have to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Here's what nobody predicted. Caitlin Clark's golf performance didn't just impact golf or basketball. It sent shockwaves through the entire sports industry. Within days, other athletes started posting their own golf content. WNBA players hitting the driving range, NBA stars suddenly talking about their handicaps, soccer players, tennis players. Everyone wanted to show they had game beyond their primary sport. Why? Because Caitlin Clark proved it matters. She proved that athletic excellence isn't compartmentalized, that the skills, mindset, and mental fortitude that make you great in one arena can translate to another. And for women's sports specifically, this was a revelation. For years, the argument has been that women's sports don't draw audiences, don't drive revenue, can't compete with men's sports for attention and investment. Caitlin Clark just demolished that argument with a golf club. She drew more attention to a Wednesday Pro-Am than most PGA Tour events get for their final rounds. She generated more sponsorship interest in 48 hours than entire women's golf seasons sometimes accumulate. And she did it by being undeniably exceptionally good. Not good for a woman, not good for a basketball player. But here's where things start to get complicated. While the sports world exploded with commentary, analysis, and celebration, there was one group notably quiet. Some of Caitlin Clark's WNBA rivals. Now, absence isn't always meaningful. Not everyone comments on everything. Athletes are busy. Maybe they didn't see the news. Maybe they were focused on their own off-season training. But fans noticed. In an era where athletes are constantly on social media, constantly engaged, constantly commenting on major sports moments, the silence felt pointed. Was it jealousy? Discomfort? Exhaustion with the constant Caitlin Clark news cycle? Or was it something else? Some fans interpreted it as petty omission. Others defended it as natural. Why should every athlete comment on everything another athlete does? But the optics are telling. Here's an athlete elevating women's sports visibility to unprecedented levels, drawing attention, investment, and respect to athletes who've been underfunded and underappreciated for decades. And some of her peers couldn't bring themselves to acknowledge it. It's a reminder that even groundbreaking moments come with complicated human dynamics, that success at this level creates tension, even or especially among those who should be celebrating together. While rivals stayed silent and the world expressed shock, Caitlin Clark's family had a different reaction. Actually, they barely reacted at all. Her father's quote says everything. "We stopped being surprised a long time ago." Think about what that means. This isn't a family watching their daughter luck into success. This isn't surprise at a one-time fluke. This is a family that's watched excellence become routine. You don't get to Caitlin Clark's level by accident. You don't break basketball scoring records, dominate the WNBA as a rookie, and then casually set golf records without a foundation of obsessive dedication to excellence. Her family stopped being surprised because they've been watching this pattern for years. The pattern of taking something seriously, committing completely, and then exceeding what anyone thought possible. Basketball was just the first stage, and now we're seeing what happens when that mentality expands. After the round, someone asked Caitlin Clark the inevitable question: would she consider joining the LPGA full-time? Her answer was carefully crafted, playful but revealing. Let's just say I'm keeping my options open. Now, parse that for a second. She didn't laugh it off, didn't dismiss it as a fun one-time thing, didn't commit fully to basketball being her only path. Keeping my options open. What does that mean? Is she genuinely considering a golf career? Could someone actually transition from professional basketball to professional golf at the highest level? Historically, the answer would be no, absolutely not. Sports at the professional level require such specialized training, such complete dedication, that crossover success seems impossible. But historically, athletes also don't break golf records in their spare time. Historically, basketball players don't drive 20-70 yards and shoot 13 under par at legitimate tournaments. Caitlin Clark is rewriting what's possible. Here's what this moment really forces us to confront. For decades, we've excused the lack of investment in women's sports with a convenient lie, that the audience isn't there, that women's sports don't have the appeal, the excitement, the star power to justify major investment. We've watched amazing athletes play in half-empty arenas. We've seen incredible performances go unnoticed. We've allowed an entire generation of female athletes to compete without adequate compensation, without proper facilities, without the respect they deserve, and we've blamed them. We've said they need to be more exciting, more marketable. We've put the burden of generating interest on the athletes themselves rather than on the systems that should be supporting them. But then Caitlin Clark comes along. She sells out NBA arenas for college games. She generates higher TV ratings than men's games. She signs deals that rival top male athletes. She breaks into golf and immediately draws more attention than established tournaments. And suddenly, the excuse evaporates. The audience is there. The excitement is there. The star power is there. It was always there. We just refuse to invest in finding it, developing it, promoting it. Caitlin Clark didn't create something new. She exposed something that was always true. That excellence draws audiences, regardless of gender. That skill, confidence, and charisma transcend the artificial limitations we've imposed. And now that we've seen it, we can't unsee it. But her achievement goes beyond gender equity in sports. This is about the future of athletic achievement itself. We're living in an era of hyper-specialization. Young athletes are pushed to focus on one sport, one position, one skill set from childhood. The logic is that elite performance requires complete dedication to a single discipline. And for the most part, that's been true. But what if it's not the only path? What if the athleticism, mental toughness, and competitive drive that makes someone elite in one sport can translate to another if given the opportunity? Caitlin Clark isn't the first multi-sport athlete, but she might be the first of a new generation that refuses to be confined by traditional boundaries. She's not abandoning basketball for golf. She's not choosing between them. She's proving that at the highest level of human performance, excellence has transferable qualities. The hand-eye coordination that makes her deadly from three-point range, it translates to reading greens and judging distances. The mental fortitude that keeps her composed in March Madness pressure, it shows up in tournament golf. The work ethic that made her rewrite record books in basketball, it's the same one that could make her competitive in golf. Let's go back to Tiger Woods for a moment. When he compared Caitlin Clark to his own breakthrough, it wasn't just about golf performance. Tiger didn't just play golf well, he changed golf. He brought athleticism to a sport that had been dominated by country club culture. He brought diversity to a world that had been predominantly white. He brought intensity, dedication, and competitive fire that made everyone else raise their game. He made golf matter to people who had never cared about golf. Sound familiar? Caitlin Clark made women's college basketball matter to people who had never watched it. She brought intensity, skill, and personality that transcended the sport itself. She forced the sports world to pay attention. And now she's doing it again, in a different sport, at a different venue. Tiger recognized himself in that moment not because their sports are similar, but because their impact is similar. They're both athletes who refuse to be contained by expectations, who perform at levels that force everyone else to recalibrate what's possible. That's why his reaction matters so much. That's why that raised eyebrow, that subtle nod, that carefully chosen quote means everything. Tiger Woods knows legends when he sees them. But let's ask what nobody wants to say out loud. What if Caitlin Clark is actually better at golf than basketball? Now that sounds crazy. She's a professional basketball player. She's had success at the highest level of the WNBA. She rewrote college basketball history. But humor me for a second. What if the sport she happened to start playing first isn't the sport where her potential is highest? What if the body mechanics, the mental approach, the competitive temperament that makes her great at basketball would make her greater at golf? It's an uncomfortable thought because it challenges everything about how we develop athletes. We assume that the first sport you excel at is your natural sport. That early success determines future trajectory. But what if that's wrong? What if there are dozens, hundreds, Thousands of athletes competing in sports where they're very good, but could be legendary in something else they've never seriously tried. Caitlin Clark's golf performance doesn't just make us rethink her potential, it makes us rethink the entire system of athletic development.